talk a little bit, or let's have a discussion here about where we are with the contaminated lands that were conveyed to Alaska Natives, as well as the abandoned well cleanup there in NPRA. I am going to be sitting down with Mr. Cripley in Alaska over the Memorial Day week and be able to go through some certain maps. So I'm not going to drill down too hard here, but it's my understanding that with the native, the lands that were conveyed to natives under ANCSA, that we're building out the database, the inventory that needs to be completed, and it's my understanding that we're going to find out that a majority of the sites are not on BLM lands. So identifying the responsible party is clearly important, but that's just one step of it. Then we need somebody who serves as the point person, the point agency, if you will, to work with all the responsible federal agencies. Is this something that BLM will agree to do, is to be that facilitator once we have identified the inventory and just the priorities there? Is BLM prepared to be able to step up to then coordinate with all the federal agencies?
Well, let me give you a description of where we're at.
Okay.
So we got with the state and looked for how many contaminated sites are there across the state that are known. Roughly, it's around 6,000. We did an overview to see how many of those were on contaminated or on conveyed lands. We got down to about 900. We have found that about 2/3 of those, so ballpark 600, are either cleaned up or are in a state of some sort of remediation. So we've got about 300 that are an open question. You'll see that roughly half of those, our current information suggests, would be DOD related, and then the other half is sort of a rainbow of different organizations. So, it's going forward, I would like to have a conversation with you about whether or not BLM is the right agency, because part of what you need is someone to compel action. I think you're looking
Agreed.
for cleanup.
Yeah.
And I think potentially the EPA or the state with delegated authorities from the EPA would have a better handle on that kind of work than we do traditionally.
Well, what I'd like to do is figure that out, because again, it's one thing to identify that these are these areas. It's another thing to have the action plan and have everybody understand what that action plan is and the level of expectation. So probably after my sit down with Mr. Cripley in Alaska, we'll have an opportunity to better identify that. On the abandoned wells, and the good news for us is that we were able to secure some resources to address the abandoned well cleanup through the Helium Stewardship Act. It was really just kind of fortuitous. Actually, it was a lot of dang hard work. Thank you very much. And we've been able to finish up work on 3 of the wells this month at Umiat, so that's good. But this is, again, an area where we need to be looking beyond those one-time monies that we received within the Helium Stewardship Act to better define how we are going to address the cost of this cleanup, how we're going to be working with the state to make sure that there's some efficient use of dollars here for the cleanup. So we need to address that further, just in terms of how much more you're going to be looking at to complete the cleanup after we expend the monies that were received under the Helium Stewardship Act. You want to comment on that?
Yes. So first, I want to thank you and Senator Wyden for all the work that you did to get that funding. It was very significant. So we have cleaned up the wells in Umiat, as you noted. The next group that we'll be working on is around Barrow. There's around 7 wells there. The next step after that will be the Simpson Peninsula. So at that point, we will likely have expended most of the $50 million. That'll be a 2 to 3 year work plan from now. And we are thinking carefully about what that larger universe of cost might be. Once we get past those clusters of wells on those sites that I noted, they get more spread out. And so we're going to have to get more creative about potentially piggybacking on new infrastructure that's built and other opportunities.
Well, and this is where really having somebody that's coordinating and helping to facilitate, again, some efficiencies. The costs are extraordinary.
They are.
We acknowledge that, but the obligation is paramount as well.